A few years back, standing in front of the shelf at Walmart, you pretty much assumed that the familiar name printed on the package was the only sign of quality that mattered. You'd skip right past the item next to it that cost half as much, not even giving it a second glance, because you figured a lower price meant lower quality. Now that whole aisle of familiar products has changed completely. You'd be awesome if you subscribed and liked this video. 1. Great value paper towels beat out the priciest name brand on the shelf. The roll of paper towels in your hand when you're wiping down the kitchen counter doesn't always need a famous name to get the job done. Great value. Paper towels are the clearest proof of that. The sheets are thick, tightly woven, and soak up messes fast without falling apart halfway through. Unlike a lot of cheap paper towels you've probably tried before, one sheet can handle a grease spill on the stove without you having to tear off a second one, something plenty of big-name brands can't even manage. The retail price runs around $9.98 for a large multi-roll pack, while name brands on the same shelf can charge 1.5 times that for the same roll count, sometimes running up to $15 for 8 comparable rolls. Plenty of longtime shoppers leave reviews saying they quietly switched to this brand years ago and never noticed a difference in durability when wiping down glass or mopping floors. One mother of 3 shared on a family shopping forum that she made the full switch after figuring out her family was saving almost $60 a year on paper towels alone. She even ran her own test, pouring a cup of water on the counter and wiping it up with both brands side by side, and noted that the cheaper roll soaked it all up in one pass while the pricier brand needed a second sheet to finish the job. If you ever assumed cheap paper towels meant flimsy paper towels, this is the product that'll make you rethink that. For a family that goes through paper towels every day, that price gap adds up over a year to a number that's nothing to shrug off, enough to cover a whole extra month of groceries. 2. Great value large eggs. A carton of eggs for just 75 cents sounds hard to believe with food prices climbing the way they have. But that's the everyday price you'll typically find at Walmart for great value large eggs. Sturdy shells, evenly colored yolks, and consistent freshness across different shopping trips are what's kept a lot of people loyal to this brand for years. Compared to organic or free-range eggs that can run $6 or $7 a carton, the price gap is too big to ignore, meaning you could buy 8 cartons of regular eggs for what 1 carton of the premium stuff costs. You don't have to sacrifice breakfast quality just to save money. In fact, plenty of families who cook regularly say they can't tell the difference between frying or boiling either kind, even when making restaurant-style fried eggs on the weekend. One shopper commented that she ran a blind test with her husband for a full week, switching between the 2 egg brands each day, and he never noticed a difference, even when she tried to trick him into guessing which day was organic. For a household eating eggs a few times a week, buying 2 dozen of the pricier eggs every month can cost more than $20 extra compared to buying the same amount of the regular kind, and that's not small change once you add it up over a year. This is one item you can save on without thinking twice. But don't assume everything under the great value name is worth trusting. There's one item on this list that'll make even the most budget-conscious shopper shake their head, and you'll find out what it is later. 3. Equate hydrogen peroxide. In the medicine cabinet, hydrogen peroxide is one of those things you barely think about the price of until you need it in a hurry. Equate hydrogen peroxide has the same 3% concentration and the same antiseptic formula as the familiar brands you see on the pharmacy shelf. There's no difference in how well it works for cleaning small cuts or disinfecting household items. It runs about $1 a bottle, while a name brand can charge you 2 to 3 times that for the same volume and the same active ingredient, meaning you could buy 3 bottles to keep 1 in the bathroom, 1 in the house, and 1 in the car and still pay less than a single bottle of the brand name version. This is exactly the kind of product where the chemical formula is set by drug regulators, so the real difference between brands is basically zero. The same way a generic pain reliever has the same dosage no matter whose name is on the label. A lot of people who work in home healthcare say they always buy this version because they know the concentration standards are just as strict no matter who makes it. A retired nurse wrote in a product review that in 20 years on the job, she never once saw a difference in disinfecting power between different brands, even when using it to sterilize equipment at the small clinic where she worked. If there's one item in your medicine cabinet, you should stop overpaying for the name on the label. It's this one. 4. Great value frozen waffles. A busy morning in a house full of kids usually starts with a few waffles going into the toaster. Great value. Frozen waffles come out golden brown with a light, crisp edge, and the inside stays soft with a real buttery taste, not dry and stiff like a lot of cheap frozen waffles tend to be. A box runs about $2.48 for 10 waffles, noticeably cheaper than the familiar brand on the same freezer shelf, which can charge almost double for the same count, sometimes as much as $4.50 for a similar box. Kids in the house usually can't tell the two apart once syrup's involved, and that's the clearest proof of how good the quality actually is. The buttery flavor gets mixed into the batter before freezing instead of spraying it on afterward. So when you toast it, you get a natural taste instead of that artificial butter smell you sometimes get. One father of 3 left a comment saying his family eats waffles almost every Saturday morning, and after switching to this brand for about a year, he figured out they'd saved over $100 while the kids ate them up just as happily as before, with his youngest even saying these came out crispier than the brand they used for years. For families eating waffles every week for breakfast, that savings adds up month to month, enough to cover a few extra things in the cart. 5. Great value oats. A bowl of oatmeal in the morning doesn't need to cost a fortune to be good for you. Great value. Oats, whether it's the old-fashioned rolled kind or the quick cooking kind, hold on to that just right chewy texture and nearly match the nutrition profile of the famous oat brands that have been around for decades. It runs about $2.98 for a large container, while the familiar brand can charge almost double for the same weight, a gap of about $3 a container for something you eat all year round. Oats are a crop with pretty standardized processing across the industry, so the real difference between brands mostly comes down to packaging and marketing, not the quality of what's actually inside. Plenty of longtime healthy eaters say they can't tell any difference in fiber content or how full they feel afterward, even when cooking it with milk and fresh fruit in the morning. One person shared on social media that she's eaten oatmeal every morning for 15 years, tried nearly every brand on the market, and concluded this cheaper option cooks up just as creamy as the pricier ones she used before. She even worked out that if she'd bought the expensive brand for those 15 years, the difference would have paid for a decent coffee maker every single year. This is one item where switching to the cheaper option barely costs you anything worth mentioning. Coming up next is something you might have ordered at a restaurant and paid 3 times as much for, while the packaged version at Walmart will surprise you with just how good it is. 6. Market-side Caesar salad kit. A packaged salad kit isn't always something to look down on. The market-side Caesar salad kit comes with crisp romaine lettuce, crunchy garlic croutons, shaved parmesan, and a bold dressing that holds its own against what you'd order at a nice restaurant. It runs about $3.98 for a box that's enough for the whole family, while a similar Caesar salad at a restaurant can cost $12 or more per individual serving, meaning a family of 4 eating out could spend up to $48 on the same meal, while this kit feeds the whole family for under $4. What makes this kit stand out is the dressing, made with a bold anchovy and real garlic flavor, not watered down or overly sweet like a lot of cheap bottled versions. Just toss it together in a few minutes and you've got a full, satisfying meal without standing over the stove. One home cook wrote that she buys this kit every week to prep her lunches for the whole work week, and her coworkers assumed she was buying from some upscale salad spot near the office, with some even asking for the name so they could order it themselves. Plenty of busy families treat this as their go-to for a quick weeknight dinner, fast to make and feeling a lot fancier than their typical packaged meals. 7. Great value chunk light tuna. Opening a can of tuna to find mushy, falling apart meat and a strong fishy smell isn't an experience anyone wants to repeat. Great value. Chunk light tuna in water avoids all that, with firm meat, big intact chunks, and clean flakes when you pull it apart with a fork. The flavor is light and fresh, not drowned out by oil or preservative taste the way some cheap brands can be. A can runs about 98 cents, while a longtime familiar tuna brand can charge double for the same weight, about $2 for a comparable can. No filler, no strange mushy texture, just real tuna that tastes like tuna. Someone who used to work in seafood processing shared that a lot of canned tuna for different brands actually comes off the same production line, just with different labels slapped on, and he'd personally seen the same batch of fish get split up and packed for 3 different brands during a single shift. For anyone making tuna sandwiches or tuna salad regularly, this is worth switching to for good without worrying about quality, especially if you like to keep several cans stocked in the pantry for busy days. 8. Sam's Choice Thin Crust Pizza beats the big frozen pizza brands. A genuinely good frozen pizza is rarer than you'd think, since most of the cheap ones come with thick, soggy, bland crusts. Sam's Choice Thin crust. Frozen pizza goes the other direction, with a thin crust that's crispy the moment it comes out of the oven and a tomato sauce with real bold flavor instead of tasting like watered-down sugar syrup. The cheese melts evenly without clumping or turning greasy like a lot of budget pizzas do. You can add quality toppings like roasted vegetables or spicy pepperoni, and the flavor still tastes real instead of getting drowned out by flour or additives. It runs about $5.98 for a large pizza, while a well-known frozen pizza brand can charge $3 to $4 more for the same size and toppings, sometimes almost $10 for one with premium cheese. One family with 3 teenagers shared that they buy this pizza every Friday night instead of ordering takeout, and worked out that they save enough each month to cover a small electric bill, some months with enough left over for soda, and a side salad too. For lazy weekend nights, this is the pizza a lot of families always keep stocked in the freezer without it ever feeling like the cheap option. If you thought only the snack food at Walmart was worth grabbing, what's coming up next will make you rethink your whole freezer shopping list. 9. Sam's Choice Angus Beef Patties. A good burger comes down almost entirely to the quality of the beef inside it, and that's exactly where Sam's Choice Angus Beef Patties shine. The patties are thick, stay juicy on the grill, and have that rich Angus beef flavor you'd usually only find at a proper steakhouse. They don't dry out or fall apart when cooked well done, which is a common problem with a lot of cheap frozen patties, especially if your grill runs a little hot. A pack with several large patties runs about $8.98, while a single Angus burger at a restaurant can cost $15 or more, meaning one pack here costs less than 2 restaurant burgers but gives you 6 full patties. For backyard cookouts or a weekend dinner, this is the item that gets you a restaurant-quality burger at home without needing a reservation or a wait. Plenty of people who've tried different patty brands agree this one's juiciness is hard to find at this price, even compared to fresh patties from the meat counter. And one guy who hosts monthly backyard cookouts said his guests keep asking where he gets his meat because they don't believe it's frozen from the grocery store. 10. Great value Greek yogurt. The texture of a good Greek yogurt should be thick, smooth, and not watery on the first spoonful. Great value. Greek yogurt, whether plain or vanilla, hits that mark with a naturally creamy texture and a protein count on par with the pricier, famous yogurt brands. The tang is light and mild, without any off flavor some cheaper brands can have. It runs about $4.48 for a large multi-serving container, while a well-known Greek yogurt brand can charge almost double for the same weight, sometimes up to $8 for a comparable size. For anyone watching their daily protein intake, this is the item that helps you hit your nutrition goals without paying extra just for the name on the label. A fitness trainer shared on social media that he tells all his clients to switch to this brand since the protein per serving is nearly identical, while their monthly food budget drops noticeably, with one client reporting she cut almost $30 a month just on yogurt alone. After trying this, a lot of people admit they start wondering why they ever paid more for something that tastes nearly identical. 11. Sam's Choice Brioche Buns. A good burger isn't just about the meat, it's also about the bun holding everything together. Sam's Choice. Brioche buns are soft, with a light buttery taste and just the right amount of sweetness, the real brioche flavor you'd expect from a fancy bakery charging you per bun. The texture doesn't crumble when you bite in, and it stays moist even with a hot patty and sauce inside, even after sitting out for a while at an outdoor gathering. A pack of 8 runs about $3.28, while brioche buns bought individually at a specialty bakery can cost $2 to $3 each, meaning a full pack of 8 from Walmart costs less than just 2 buns from a bakery. Using these for burgers, breakfast sandwiches, or even French toast takes the whole dish up a notch compared to a regular hamburger bun. Plenty of people who used to save bakery bread for special occasions now use these every week since they don't notice much difference in quality. And some have left reviews saying guests at a family gathering asked for the bakery's address, assuming these were a special order, when really it was just a pack grabbed on a quick Walmart run. Before we get to the last dessert on the must-buy list, here's something you need to know about the next 3 items a lot of people keep buying by mistake every week. 12. Great value ice cream homemade vanilla. Ending the must-buy list with a tub of vanilla ice cream makes sense, since this might be the biggest surprise of all: great value ice cream. Homemade vanilla has a rich, creamy texture without icy chunks and a real vanilla flavor instead of that flat, artificial taste. It runs about $2.98 for a large tub, while a well-known ice cream brand can charge almost double for the same size, sometimes as much as $5.50 for a comparable tub on the same freezer shelf. For a family with young kids or a weekly dessert habit, that price difference adds up month to month into a number worth reconsidering your shopping habits over. One grandfather wrote in a product review that his grandkids couldn't tell the difference between this and the pricier brand his family used for years, and now they've switched over for good since the low price lets them buy it more often without any guilt, some months picking up 3 tubs for less than the cost of 1 premium container. Plenty of people who stayed loyal to an expensive ice cream brand for years say once they tried this, it's hard to justify paying more just for nicer packaging. This is the perfect item to end the must-buy list with, one to add to your cart on your next shopping trip. Great value. Fresh produce. One item you should stay away from no matter how cheap it is. Not everything under the great value name is worth buying, and fresh produce is where you need to be the most careful. The quality of the strawberries, leafy greens, and other berries in this line tends to be inconsistent from one trip to the next, some batches fresh and good, others already looking a little wilted right on the shelf. The shelf life also runs noticeably shorter than expected, with plenty of people reporting spoilage after just 2 or 3 days despite paying around $3.50 a box. The issue comes down to the supply chain and warehouse storage, which doesn't always match the standards of stores that specialize in fresh produce and turn over inventory much faster. Someone who used to work in food distribution shared that cheaper produce often ships in larger batches with fewer temperature checks along the way, making the quality unpredictable by the time it reaches shoppers. With one shipment, he saw running nearly 10 degrees off from where it needed to stay to keep the produce fresh. If you need produce to use the same day, it's fine, but if you're planning to keep it in the fridge for a few days, this is the kind of item that ends up getting tossed out and wasting your money. With fresh food, saving a few dimes isn't worth the risk of it spoiling early, especially when you end up having to buy it again the same week. Great value toilet paper, the item that ends up costing you more down the road. It sounds backwards that a cheap item could end up costing you more, but great value toilet paper is a perfect example. The paper is thin and doesn't absorb well, and plenty of people report needing to use twice as much each time compared to thicker brands. The texture also isn't as soft as you'd expect, which can be uncomfortable with regular use for the whole family, especially in a house with older folks or kids sensitive to rougher materials. A large pack runs about $12, which sounds like a deal compared to a name brand that can run up to $18 for the same roll count, but since you end up using more each time, the real cost per use isn't as cheap as the price on the label suggests. Someone who tracks her family's spending closely shared that after counting how many rolls they went through each month, she realized her family burned through a large pack in just 2 weeks instead of the 3 weeks a thicker brand lasted, meaning her monthly cost actually ended up higher than buying the pricier brand. This is exactly the kind of product where the savings on paper don't match the savings in real life once you do the math. If you're thinking about switching to this to cut costs, try counting how many rolls you'd actually go through in a month before deciding. Great value ground coffee, one you'll end up pouring down the drain. Plenty of people start their morning with a cup of coffee, and here's why you shouldn't reach for great value ground coffee to make it. The flavor is pretty flat, missing the boldness and aroma a good cup of coffee needs. A lot of people who've tried it say it even tastes slightly burnt or stale, like the beans sat around a long time before getting packaged, even when following the exact water to grounds ratio on the label. It runs about $6.50 a container, which isn't overly expensive, but it's not cheap enough to make up for how disappointing the coffee tastes, especially compared to some mid-range brands that cost just a few dimes more with noticeably better flavor. A former professional barista shared that during a blind tasting with a few other brands, she consistently ranked this one at the bottom because of a slightly burnt aftertaste that lingers, even brewed in a standard drip coffee maker like a lot of households use every morning. Coffee is one of those products where bean quality and roast level directly shape the final flavor, and that's exactly where this one falls short. If you take your morning cup seriously, this is one of the few things at Walmart worth skipping in favor of something else. Now picture yourself back at that same shelf, except this time your hand isn't automatically reaching for the familiar name anymore. You now know 12 store brand items that quietly beat out the name brands on real quality, from paper towels that soak up a spill in one pass to a tub of vanilla ice cream. Nobody in the family could tell apart from the pricier stuff. Next time you're standing in that same aisle, the price comparison won't matter as much as knowing exactly which items you can trust and which ones are just hiding behind a cheap price tag. Out of those 3 items to avoid, which one did you buy without knowing the reason until now?